As someone who's played a small amount of dialogue-heavy games, Citizen Sleeper was the first one to hook me into its economically harsh world. You play as a sleeper, a prosthetic mind inside a company-owned body, on the run from said company, trying to escape their clutch. You land on the Eye, a space station where you struggle to survive each cycle, and this is reflected in-game through the two meters you manage, the first of these meters being your condition. Depending on how filled it is, it will decide how many dice rolls you'll have for that given cycle. Dice rolls being the only action that can be taken in the game, therefore important to keep the number of rolls that can be done per cycle as high as you can manage. Condition will always decrease, but will decrease more if the second meter, your energy, is also low. Energy can be spent or increased by positive, neutral, or negative outcomes of actions. Now you may be asking what dictates those three outcomes, and it would be your dice, which randomly gives a number between 1 being a high chance of a negative outcome, and 6 being a high chance of a positive outcome. Energy can also be increased by spending cryo, the currency of the game. Cryo isn't just used to get your energy up, it could also be for objectives, and sadly, as your condition will always worsen, big bucks will be needed for a drug to restore it. I could go into further detail, but the main point I'm trying to get at here is that it's important to manage all three of these resources. The consequence of mismanagement could be catastrophic for you or those who want something out of you. The first person you meet is Dragos, and he helps you by sheltering you in an old freight container. But he gives you a job to do. The job being to clear out scrap in a scrapyard. Very complex. A deadline is made through the number of cycles that this job needs to be done by. Dragos gives mad or else vibes during this conversation. So you, the sleeper, gotta manage your dice rolls for energy, but also do work on the scrapyard, all the while cycles go by as your condition worsens, giving you fewer options on what you can do that cycle. This moment had me struggling to keep everything under control, and at one point unsure if I would have enough cryo for my life-dependent drug. This ruthless economic survival of trying to live day by day, being unsure if you can keep up for the next cycle, had me immersed as a sleeper on the Eye. And this feeling was intended by the development team, with lead writer Gareth Martin taking inspiration from our current real-world economic system, particularly in gig economies like Uber. For example, let's imagine we are an Uber driver. We sit around waiting for work to begin via rolling dice of getting rides, and depending on the distance of the ride could lead to a positive outcome of a good amount of cash or a negative outcome with little to show for. Energy can be heavily decreased in these negative outcome rides where the driver needs to be hypervigilant of accidents. That energy loss from that vigilance can only be increased through spending money on energy enhancements or going to the next cycle. Spending that money may leave you short for that life-dependent drug you need to keep your condition up. Shifting from that example, the absolute stellar art and character designs done by Guillaume Singelin, really giving the world a cyberpunk future with the tech feeling both advanced and scrappy and archaic all at the same time, while also giving props to Gareth Martin for the compelling writing that kept me engaged the whole time. Lastly, this game's atmosphere wouldn't be anything if it weren't for the perfectly fitting music done by Amos Roddy, an unforgettable soundtrack that has stuck with me long after credits. It really nails the atmosphere of the Eye, and of course everybody else who worked on the game. And yes, I highly recommend this game. It usually goes for cheap on Steam and is available on Xbox Game Pass, so you can get it there as well. And lastly, I'm excited for Citizen Sleeper 2, which has been announced.